beginning of our look at scales and triads. Now, we are all familiar with the C major scale because it's one of the exercises, as has been noted before. Jason showed it to us in the Segovia fingering over 2 octaves. So what we're going to look at now is the underlying structure of the major scale. All scales have an underlying formula or structure, so let's dive right in and take a look at that. The first interval we'll see is a whole step from C to D. The second interval is a whole step from D to E. If you remember, on these string sets we get whole steps when our fingers are like that. Let's switch the E over here, and it's a little easier to see. So we go C to D is a whole step, D to E is a whole step, E to F is a whole step. Let's switch that F over here now. So we've got C, whole step, half step, then a whole step to the G. Now from the G, it's a whole step to the A whole step to the B, and a half step to the C. Once again, slowly, whole, half, whole, half. So it's really whole, half twice with a whole step in the middle. In other words, the whole, half can be structured on the C, whole, half, go up a whole step to G and do whole, half again. Whole, half. Backwards. Half, whole, half, whole. Now, that is very strong, powerful thing to know, the formula, because you can literally now create and play the scale anywhere you want from any place. We've gone through all of the fundamental intervals that are necessary in the scale construction, the whole and the half step. We looked at them how half steps on one string, whole steps on one string. We looked at half steps on 2 adjacent strings and whole steps. So with that knowledge and familiarity, we can do that. Now I'm going to try to do this without looking at the guitar. I'm just going to grab any note. I have no idea which one this will be, this note here. So let's see if I can do that. Whole, half, whole, half. That sounds right. Going backwards, half, whole, half, whole. Okay, let me try, and I'll start with the first finger just anywhere. Here. Whole, half, whole, half. Half, whole, half, whole. Half, whole, excuse me, half, whole. Okay, see, if you can follow the scale of the construction of it in your mind, then you can play it literally anywhere. Now, we learn the scales a lot of different ways. One way is the pattern. In other words, we see it visually as this pattern, and our ear tells us when we make a mistake. No. Okay, so we see a visual pattern, and our ear is kind of being the referee in a way and telling us when we're making a mistake. We could jump into some scale we've never even thought of and try to let our ear do it, and that's great. Nope. Yeah, that sounds right. No. Yeah. No. happens after a while is you learn the scales in different positions, and then they become somewhat automatic. When Jason's playing and his ear hears a C major scale, he doesn't really think about it. He's done the practice, he's integrated the sound, got it under his fingers, and then when his mind or his inner ear hears that sound, he probably doesn't even think of it as a C scale. He thinks of it as a color or a sound, and then his fingers, because he's practiced it so much and has it so integrated into his fingers, that his mind, his hands instantly reflect what his inner ear or is hearing. That's really the goal. But he has probably spent hours and hours and hours playing the patterns over and over and over again. And you learn them all up and down the fingerboard. We've learned one through the exercise, actually two. The D scale is the same as the C in the exercises, but the G scale went all the way up, I think, over 3 octaves. So that was yet another fingering. Okay, so that's the beginning of understanding the major scale. What is the underlying formula? The key, if you will, the roadmap to getting it. It's whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Backwards, half, whole, 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 half, whole, half, whole, half, whole, 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 half. A good way to practice this sometimes is to take one you know, like this one, in this position, starting down here, and see if you can change on every string. So maybe you change your hand position here, and now can you take the scale up? Now let's try it on the next string. Made a 2-position shift there. Let's go back and try that again without making 2 positions, just 1. Let's go back on the first string as much as we can. We change on the 3rd string anyway, so let's try the 2nd. Any fingering, any way you can get it out works. Okay, now a lot of times they're too awkward to really be all that usable, but the idea again is to not get locked so that you can go up and down from any place on the fingerboard. As we'll get into in the chord construction, the chord construction is usually developed out of different basic chords, E, A, D, G, and C. So generally what happens on the guitar is people learn a chord shape, like an E chord shape, and they learn to move that up and down the net, which we're doing in the other section. And then when they get to this kind of chord shape, they will know how to play the major scale in that chord shape. So it's not just simply just the scales in a random order. They're linked or tied to the underlying skeleton of the chord. It's generally the way the guitar players look at it. Okay, the next time we're going to come back and we're going to start the beginning of triad construction. We're going to look at each degree of the scale from the root to the 3rd and determine whether each degree of the scale is a major 3rd or a minor 3rd.